Hello everyone, welcome to the second video in our modeling music marketplace series. So we continue um, building a logical schema for a music marketplace based on Discogs. So in the first video, we created 4 anchors, several attributes, and several links. Let's continue. So let's look at an album. What next? We can go either like a breadth first, or we can go in depth. But for our uh, for, for this video, we are going to sort of randomly pick interesting parts and work on those. So next thing that we can probably talk about is track list. So what we look at is a release. You can see there are tracks, and there is also a number of track on a certain side of the vinyl, because this is a vinyl record. It has 2 sides, A and B. Let's go back to master and let's see what's going on here. You can see the same track list, but here there are no A1, A2, and so on. Why? Because we don't know which media it is. It can be a vinyl, it can be a CD, cassette, and so on and so on. So all we know about an album is only the list of tracks. So it's easy to see that tracks are an anchor, because obviously tracks can be counted and you can add more and more tracks in your database. So we just add a new anchor called track. And the first attribute that we can think of is, of course, the name of the track. What is the name of this track? And an example is, for example, so it's a string, of course, as any name, and for example, astronomy domina. One other attribute that we can think about is the sequence number, because the track list is not a random sequence of tracks. It's in a certain order. And we have to have that explicitly. And so we can think about the attribute, what is the sequential number of this track? It's going to be integer, and an example, it's going to be 3. So our code is going to assign 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on in each album to every track that we have. Right. Now let's go back to the to certain release, where we have this where every track goes on a certain side and it has its own number here. So it's not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but A1, A2, B1, B2, and so on. We can even show something a bit more interesting. You can see here that there is also a time the duration of the track in minutes and seconds. So this is a very typical why we have duration here and not in the like top level album, because the length of a track depends on depends on release basically, because it can be off by, I don't know, several seconds, or it can even be unknown also. Not every record about specific releases contains this information. So this seems to be a different thing, not the same sort of track that we had for the master, for the album itself. By the way, let's also establish a link between the album. We need to be careful here, album and the track. So album, track, it's 1 to n. An album can have several tracks. A track can belong to only one album. Here we have sort of a glimpse into one of the common problems that we may have during logical database modeling. So what does it mean a track can belong to only one album, right? We know that the same track can sort of exist in different variations, like, I don't know, remixes, different, what's the word, re-recordings and so on. And this can be super confusing if you don't keep things sort of simple, and if you don't try to think about use cases that you still don't have before you, right? So what we have here is a simple thing. We have to show a page with the master release, with the album, and we have to show the list of tracks here, right? And for this, this link is enough. There is no requirement at the moment. We don't know that. Maybe the business will expand and this requirement will appear. There is no requirement to see the list of different variations of the same track or something like that, right? And that lets us keep the model like a simple and simple enough to handle our current business requirement, right? But I think that when we start thinking about specific releases, it's a little bit different. It's a different sort of track. It's hard to talk about because because natural language is quite ambiguous. You have to you as people, you understand what I mean, right? Probably, but we have to add additional qualifiers to to distinguish between tracks of an album and the tracks of the release. Why? Because in certain releases, you can musical releases, you can have bonus tracks and even more interesting configurations. We're gonna see some examples of that a bit later. So it seems that we have another thing that is called release track. We just needed to find a unique name for this new anchor, and we just found it. It may not be the best. Maybe we will find something better later. I don't know. So for the release track, we have, what is the sequential number of this track? We repeat this. It's again integer, and again example is 3. How do we call this A1, A2, A3? I think it could be something like a physical location, maybe. I don't really know what's the word for that. What is the physical location of this track? And here it's not an integer, it's a string, because it can be, for example, A2. Now we have the duration of the track, of the release track. What is the duration of this? Okay. Let's fix. It's sometimes sort of hard to keep this precise wording that is needed for database design. What is the duration of this release track in seconds? And that again is an integer, and for example 333 5 minutes and 34 seconds. Right, now we need a link between release and the release track. 1 to n, and a release can have several release tracks. A release track can belong to only one release. Will there be a link between a track and a release track? I think yes. I think we need to understand what corresponds to what. So we have a track and a release track. And it's gonna be 1 to n again, because one track on a generic album can have multiple tracks in each of the release, in each release. A track can map to. I don't really know what verb is better to use here, because we'll just find something that makes sense. Then maybe we'll fix that later. Well, I don't know, when somebody tells us that they don't understand, and we'll find something better. Can map to several release tracks. Release track response to only one track. Nice. So we have all the information we need to render this part of the page, right? We can get physical position name, duration, and the relative sequential number of each track. The same for album. Cool. Let's go back to the information about the band, as we called it. So let's click on Pink Floyd and let's look at the members, right? David Gilmour. Here's the thing. We can also see that David Gilmour published lots of albums, released lots of albums, and it actually looks like, and if we look at the URL, we can see that it also has /artist here, artist ID and slug with the name of the musician. And it seems that we have made a mistake in our previous video because we used the word band for the anchor, and it seems that it's not the best term for that. Thankfully, we can rename it to artist, and we can go to everywhere. Artist, what is the name of this? Artist, what else? Here are some links. An artist festival. An album was created. Album tag. Cool. So we changed the name of the anchor, but like the funny thing that can happen during the actual so we're compressing 25 years of Discogs history in basically several hours of those videos, right? But if we were to actually work on this, build it across the years, it's often those first initial decisions get sort of hard-coded into the production database, right? And so a very like a typical thing, like I wouldn't be surprised if you actually look at the actual database behind Discogs, this table would be bands, would be called bands, but it would also contain the list of musicians, like people, right? Because imagine we're doing that very quickly. We just want to build a catalog of our, I don't know, personal collection, blah, blah, blah. And so we start coding and we imagine, and we just find the name of for the table. We choose bands, and then we're like, oh, wow, it's not only bands, but it's too late because it's already running. So things like that happen. It's probably not possible to prevent them completely. Just so you know that this is a very common situation. So our band consists of several members, and that means that there is a link between them. So we can, for example, insert row just to sort of consolidate related like links from roughly the same anchor more or less together. This is not possible in general because there are two anchors, but we can do that a little bit more readable. Artist to artist. So here we again have this sort of conflict between the natural language and the more precise but sometimes awkward wording that you have to use for database design, right? So we can say that what an artist consists of several artists. That makes no sense. An artist is a member of it's not really clear what to do here. And frankly, I'm confused because URL contains the word artist, but we cannot keep using that because our sentences are gonna sound confusing and pretty insane. So we can and note that we cannot have both. Like you could say, let's create both anchors, right? And artist, artist like musician, for example, and the band. And then it's gonna sound very natural, right? But then we will have to have a link for both, for every functionality that relates to both artists and both musicians and bands. We will have to have two links, like for example, sites. So there are many sites about an artist, and there are many sites about a certain musician, right? With albums, this is the same. There are also reviews, videos, lists, right? There is no sort of good solution here. I mean, there is not good, but like obvious and we can have both. We can even try to have both and then see how it goes, actually. The more I think about that, the more I realize that actually maybe this is not a bad idea, because not a lot of stuff is associated with the band/musician, right? Most of the complexity goes on goes for the on the level of albums and releases. Releases are probably the most complicated thing that we're gonna have here. So another possible solution that people sometimes do is we can find a word that is sort of abstract thing between band and musician, right? So performer, for example. I don't know if the word performer is sounds more abstract, but for that we can just try the try writing this link and see how it goes. So for example, we have here performer. I don't know really. A performer consists of several performers. Performer is a member of only one performer. This is insane. We can probably even try something like artist or band. This is a sort of a compromise, right? That's actually an interesting question, and I have no idea how to resolve it perfectly. So let's leave it like this for now. Maybe we will find something, some like a better idea next time. Let's make sure that we have, we have this link between bands and musicians, basically. Another thing that we have thinking about the bands and musicians, we certainly need to distinguish between if this is a if this is a band, like an organization, or this is a person, right? And if we're going to have only one anchor, and we don't even, and we didn't decide yet, right? We will need another artist. What is the type of this artist? And this is going to be an not enum, either or. We call it either or. And example values is just the list of possible values. And here it's gonna be band or musician. Cool. Let's go back to, so we have releases. We can go back to the artist page, to the band page, and we can see that there are images, right? So there are definitely many images about a certain artist. I don't really know how to talk about that now. So we have image, and we have a link between artist and image. So 1 to n. An artist can have several images. An image can belong to only one artist. What are the logical attributes of images? So when we're thinking in terms of logical schema, it's sort of tempting to think to already start thinking about how we're going to store images, right? We know that storing images directly in the relational database is not a good idea. We know that we can store images in Amazon S3, right? But we don't care about that at this point. We will not be thinking, we will not be mentioning Amazon or specific database here, right? We are thinking on a logical level. So one thing that we have about the image is basically its contents. And what is the contents of this image? And for that, we have a special logical data type that is called blob. And we cannot show an example here, so we just write something like that. We can add a picture emoji here, an emoji of a picture. I don't know how to say that. What about other things like width of an image, height? We can see here that I don't see anything else here. Like there are no texts, no alt text. I don't know. Maybe it is. We can add that later. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter now. Let's add. So we added the link, but we can now go back to the album, and we can see that there is also the same kind of sort of images about the specific about the album, right? So we can add those to our links table. Insert row, album image 1 to n. We can probably copy paste a little bit here, and album can have several images, and an image can belong to only one album, right? And then we can go and check the release, and we can see that there are also images about the releases because they have different form factor. So there is they are different from both. So let's add another one. Let's copy paste it here. We can have a release image. A release can have several images. An image can belong to only one release. All right. So one common thing that people like tend to do, I think, at this point, is they try to somehow compress those three links. So we have image, band, image, album, image, release. Like we somehow want to sort of say that image belongs to something, and then now let's put this something like find something common between those three things, and then we will instead of 3 rows in this table, we're somehow gonna have one, but with a bit more explanation of what goes here. So we won't be doing that, and I advise against doing that. I strongly suggest to sort of have all such links explicit, because you can optimize for that later on the physical level when you're going to design tables. But this is also not completely necessary, and it's possible that you won't be even doing that too. We will talk about that later when we'll talk about physical table design, like what happens in this sort of compression or simplification maybe, or I don't know, like, but I know that people tend to do that, or people tend to not like when you have three very similar things, like like in this pattern. So we can what? Let's take something random. Label tower. Let's look at the label. Maybe we will find that labels also have images. Cool. So label image 1 to n. Let's copy paste and now label an image can belong to only one label. Yeah, I know some people are getting anxious here and they want to optimize this. So what we have here, parent label, capital records, right? Yeah, and the sublabels. So a label can have multiple sublabels. So this is a link between the same anchor. Label to label, and it's still 1 to n because a label can have several sub-labels. We're using a bit awkward wording here because we want to have the word label, the name of the anchor clearly visible. Because if we write sub-labels here, somebody can think that this is a separate anchor. A label can be belong to only one label. We can also write more longer and more awkward sentences. Can be a sub-label of only one label. I don't know. That's the game that you cannot win, actually. And many such sentences, in my experience, are sort of like awkward to read. Because there are not too many, not too much space to express yourself. But at least it's unambiguous, and we can later design physical tables from this, because every sentence that we wrote so far, we know that it's basically true. Like a label cannot be a sublabel of several labels. So it's 1 to n and not m to n, right? And we can also go over all of those sentences, and we can confirm that our links design is correct. Links, we'll talk about links later. There is this thing that we missed. There is this catalog number for the link between a release and the label, album and the release. We will discuss that in the next video. Thank you for watching. I hope that it was not too rambling. I wanted to show sort of how the actual thought process goes, and to show that this design process can be sort of like messy in a way, but then it gets structured in a pretty good like a diagram. We're gonna draw a diagram of links in the next video also. Thank you. See you on the next one.